Polybrush out of the box comes with a couple of great texture blending shaders, but what if you want to write your own? Well, fortunately, adapting a texture blending shader to work with Polybrush's texture blend mode is pretty easy. I'll walk you through the process now by writing a simple unlit texture blending shader. If you want to use the color blending, you don't need anything special. Polybrush can pick up a color channel and automatically work with it. So start out by creating a shader. I'll call this My Blend. And I'm going to breeze past some of the actual shader writing parts. So here I'm just making this a 4-channel texture blender. So get all of our samplers in there. And so originally naming them texture 1, 2, 3, 4, or rather main text 1, 2, 3. And then we need to sample all of those textures. Okay, so that's all of our textures in a row. They're all being read into the shader. Now for the blending parts. For this shader, I'll use the color channel on the mesh. So pass that to the fragment shader. We need to actually tell the shader we want colors. Ditto for passing the fragment. Okay, now to apply the shader, Polybrush passes texture blending information per channel in a normalized way, so we're guaranteed that this will always equal out to 1. So i.color.r tells us how much in the red channel. Similarly for blue, green, alpha, etc. And now just add them together to get our final color. And change this to final. Okay, so this is a simple blend shader. It receives blending information in the color channel, applies it in the fragment shader. Easy. Trouble is, Polybrush doesn't know how to access or what to pass this shader to get the blend information through to it. So to tell it that, the first thing you need to do is tell it how many textures are in use. And you do that by defining Z texture channels and the number of channels there are. So in this case, 4. And the important part is this bit right here. As long as you have defined Z texture channels and a number somewhere in your composition, you could even do this if you wanted to. Polybrush can pick it up and read that. Okay, so that's half of it. The next half is to tell it what channels to pass in. So Z mesh attributes, same sort of deal. You just need to have this and then a list of the attributes, so color in this case. So this could be written as a comment if you didn't want to define it. With the texture channels, I like to define it because there's a chance I could use it in the shader code. Z mesh attributes is less so important. That could be a comment. Doesn't matter. Okay, but that's everything. If you had different UV channels, like if you wanted to pass, say, 8 textures, you could define that it works with the color and UV0 channel, or maybe UV and tangent. And there's a list of all these in the documentation. If you go into the writing texture blend shaders, it will show you all the channels you can use, as well as some examples, and all this code is written out. And there's instructions for working with Shader Forge, which is similar in that you just define the number of channels and attributes used. And there's some more examples below. Okay, so let's try this out. Make a material. My blend. I'll open up a new scene to test with, and we'll use one of Polybrush's default meshes. Okay, so it came in white. That makes sense because we don't have any textures applied to the blend shader. Please excuse my clumsy clicking. And there you go. Once you hover over, Polybrush will take care of populating the color channel. So up until this point, I guess the mesh didn't have a color channel. But Polybrush checks that and adds one for you automatically. And there you go. So one of the neat things about writing a shader with this is that Polybrush can automatically detect which channels are bump maps and which ones are actual textures. So it'll always go for the first diffuse textures. And there you go. If you have any questions, feel free to stop by the forums. I'll try to watch the YouTube comments, but if you want a fast response, I'm much more active on the Procore forums. And that's just procore3d.com/forums. All right, thank you. Good luck.